What is good, YouTube? Quinway basketball analysis. Coming to y'all with that analysis, we're going to talk about trade deadline. It's officially over. Um, a lot of things, happened and didn't happen. We obviously seen Bradley Beal um, opt to do surgery, so he wasn't eligible to be traded. We don't know what his future is as the Wizards. They kind of fell out the playoff race right now. And also, he's out for the season, so that doesn't really help. And on top of that, we really don't know what he's going to do with his career with Wizards. Will he stay with the Wizards? Will he leave the Wizards? We still got to figure that part out. Well, not us, but the Wizards. And him, Damian Lillard, had a terrible year this year, his worst year since his rookie season, if not worse than that, and he didn't get traded. They traded everybody on the roster. The ideal thing to me would be to trade him too, which would be smart to do, but they didn't do it. So we had to see. They still got the summer to figure out with Dame because he's still under contract. Obviously, you ready to get rid of him. Hasn't really proved to be the man or a franchise guy that can lead you to a title. And he's getting older, and he's coming off the worst season of his career. Plus, he's coming off an injury. Plus, you have to give him an extension. Eventually, if you want to keep him around, which you wouldn't want to do at this point. So they got to figure that part out too. Then we got the trades that actually happened, today, and we can talk about whatever at this point, this season and before. So I'll try to cover as much things as I could throughout the week as we basically end the week. As tomorrow is Friday with the trade deadline. So let's see what happened while I was at work. So one thing we do know is the Nets agree to trade James Harden to the Sixers for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Drummond, and 2 first rounders. So Paul Millsap was obviously included into that trade. The 2022 first round pick is unprotected, while the 2027, so 2022 is this draft, and while the 2027 selection will be protected. So keep that in mind. And like I said, the 2027 pick is a long time from now. So we really don't know what that's going to be. Brooklyn can defer the 2022 pick until 2023. The 2027 selection is protected 1 through 8, and again in 2028. So it depends on where it lands. If it don't land where they needed to land, and it will go into 2028. Then the pick turns into 2 second-round picks and $2 million in 2029. This don't really matter as much because obviously Brooklyn may be a totally different team in 2027, and even then the pick still might change in 2028, which may be relevant or irrelevant, depending on where they at, which will most likely probably be rebuilding around this time. And then the 20, turn into 2 second rounders and $2 million. Don't really matter as much either, just because it might not even become just a possibility for the pick to become that, which ain't terrible, but also ain't that amazing. When it turns into 2 second rounders, especially because they might actually be worse than they are right now. Harden had been seeking the trade from the Nets over the past few weeks, while the Sixers wanted, basically trying to get him for years, which was Daryl Morey. Since last year, the Sixers and Nets were said to be haggling over the inclusion of Matisse Thybulle shortly before the trade finalized, which I guess they decided to keep him, who was an All-NBA defender last year. Daryl Morey and the Sixers have sought a trade with the Rockets in 2021, but the Knicks won the sweepstakes, which they did get Harden, but obviously got traded to the Sixers. And Harden will seek a new contract this offseason as he becomes eligible for a 5-year, $260 million deal. Brooklyn knew that was likely headed in free agency this summer. Harden ultimately ended up with Philadelphia this offseason. Well, now because he's on the roster. So remember, James Harden and Paul Millsap with Ben Simmons, Seth, and Andre, and 2 first-round picks that we really don't know what they will be in the future, just because, like I said, it could convey to multiple things, which we really don't know what it really becomes until it actually becomes something. So what I will say is not really too crazy. Like I said, I don't really like the Sixers that much. They have been a pretty, consistent team at making the playoffs. They have, literally being there for a couple seasons, had the same result over and over again with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, which is getting put out in the second round, regardless of what seed, regardless of who's around them. Jimmy Butler, Tobias, Jimmy Butler, Al Horford, and Joel Embiid. Now they had, Ben Simmons and him and Tobias. And then this year you also got, just Embiid, carrying on for the most part to a top 16 in the Eastern Conference. And then now they're going to try him and Harden. As we know, a lot of people have been really, really disappointed in James Harden. This was an MVP. This was a scoring champion just 2 seasons ago. And now he's an all-star reserve this year, coming off an injury season last year in the playoffs. Then got a little injured, coming into the trade deadline. So this isn't the greatest time for Harden. This isn't his best or greatest season. This has been another great season for Joel Embiid, but we know, what Joel Embiid does. So it's not really something to go crazy out because he did it last year and kind of flopped in the playoffs like he usually do every year. So really nothing to go crazy about. But they did trade something. I don't really think they gave up too much. They don't really need Seth Curry because now they have James Harden, which will take that shooting guard spot. They still do have Tyrese Maxey at that point guard spot, which they had to figure that out type of thing because Harden is a guy that likes the ball in his hand a lot, not really a guy that likes to shoot, off the ball that much. And Joel Embiid is not really a pick and roll center. He more of a give me the ball, let me do my thing type of guy, while Harden is the same. And Joel Embiid is a guy that can post up a little bit, hit a jump shot from mid-range or a three. And now they got a guy that don't really take over in the clutch that much. Like I said, James Harden, even throughout his career in Houston, hasn't really been this guy that takes over series or takes over the fourth quarter and leads you to the W, which has been a problem in his playoff career. And it's not really better now. Like I said, this is a season where he's worse. And on top of that, you got to look at the fact that you have to give him that extension, like I mentioned before this season started. The problem is you still have guys like Embiid, who extension does start. Since he just signed it, he will be getting paid more money, down the line as he signed a mega extension, this season. And then Tobias contract will come off the books, so maybe they can tool the roster a little bit different a couple years from now. But Harden may be worse than he is this year because this is his worst year so far in the last couple seasons. So this is a roster. Don't look at them as amazing or contender. It doesn't really blow my mind at this point. But you rather have James Harden than Ben Simmons because it didn't really work and Ben Simmons wasn't playing at all. So that's the only reason why this trade makes sense. Like I said, you don't really want Harden now, especially at this age, especially at the contract in the season that he's having now. And then, like I said, Embiid has been a flopper, for a lot of seasons in a row now. So not really crazy over Embiid either. But, it makes sense in that regard that, you get rid of Ben Simmons, who wasn't playing for you at all, and you get an all-star reserve and James Harden this season. Daryl Morey really, really wanted James Harden, but then you realize they never won or really did anything or even made it to the finals, as a GM and a player. Even when James Harden was at his best, they did go number one, got to the finals, got beat by KD, then lost to the Warriors again the next season. Then, it got blew up after that. So this is more of a wait and see. You kind of wish the deal, if they was going to do this the whole time, you kind of wish Daryl Morey and them would have did a little earlier, instead of doing it this late, because now the roster don't really make much sense at this point. Now that they just traded pieces to get Harden and that was it. And now the deadline is over. You kind of wish they could have made some moves and figured things out as they was building the roster, as they trying to win the title, instead of just trying to hurry up and get Harden and that's it. When Harden hasn't played that well and he's on an injury already coming into the trade deadline. So I don't really get that part either. But this is the guy he wanted. This is his whole goal. Didn't really win a title or a championship with him ever, since he had him. But this is the guy he wanted the whole time. So we'll see if they can get it done, in Philly. But for the Brooklyn side, it's still kind of confusing even for them. You trade James Harden for Ben Simmons, not really going to score, not really going to, dominate the ball either. But he does need the ball offensively, can play off the ball, but we got to be in the paint. And then you realize you got Kyrie, which makes it not make much sense when James Harden kind of set everybody up. Kyrie scored, but now you got Seth Curry and the trade deadline is over. So you can't trade Seth Curry because the deadline is over. but you got Steph Curry to play shooting guard. So I guess he comes off the bench. You got Patty Mills. So I don't really get all of it. I mean, this trade probably was better off not happening. Honestly, for both teams, it really don't make sense when you think about it. But I mean, it's done. I mean, Kevin Durant is with Ben Simmons and Ben Simmons and Kyrie now. I think that's a problem too because I don't really think that make much sense. I don't really think um, Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie make sense at this point. I mean, it ain't the worst thing, I guess. I mean, they really got to figure it out. Kind of feel the same way about Philly. I'm not really crazy over the James Harden and B fit. I'm not really crazy over the Ben Simmons, Kyrie, Kevin Durant fit either. And I'm not really crazy over the Steph Curry getting traded when they got Kyrie, then you got Steph Curry. Then I don't really get how that's going to work either. Maybe you put Ben Simmons at power forward, but KD play power forward. Maybe you put him at three. So a lot of stuff, the trade is done at this point, but it don't really make much sense for both of these teams when you really think about it. But it's done. So I don't really think the Nets got significantly better, honestly. And I don't really think Philly, got too worse. But I do feel like you got something for Ben Simmons, but you got to trade other pieces to get Harden, who is also not that great right now either this season. So I don't really know what it really did for Philly. I don't really know if it made them significantly better, significantly worse, because we don't really know how Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid play together because they haven't done it. And Harden hasn't really been that good this year either. So I don't really get it, but it's done. I'm not really crazy for both teams. I don't really know who won or lost this trade, but this is one of them trades where they got to play this season out and we'll get a better idea. Just because you got two all-stars being traded, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You don't really know until they get on the court. So this is a trade that probably shouldn't happen, probably better off not happening. But now that it does happen, I don't really know what to expect from either of these teams, and we'll just have to see. So I don't really got nothing crazy on that because, like I said, stylistically, the Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons team really don't make sense. They did also, like I said, get Andre Drummond, who did kind of fix their problem at center. When you look at the fact that they needed some size, but by Drummond not being a great defender or rim protector really ever in his career, they just give him another big body that can just, set screens and finish around the rim and just give them size that they lack, but now they kind of have with Drummond. But ain't the worst thing either. Like Drummond is solid. Seth gives them depth. I don't really know how he's going to fit and where his playing time going to be. And like I said, I don't really know how the Ben Simmons, Kyrie's, Kevin Durant team works or fit or makes much sense at this point. But it's done now, so we just have to see how that works. Um, so I don't really think the teams really got that much better or worse. But we had to see about that. The Suns will also acquire Torrey Craig from the Pacers for Jalen Smith in a second rounder. Um, Torrey Craig did Torrey Craig did finish the season last year with the Suns, averaging 4 points, and he did help them in the playoff a little bit, gave them a little versatility, ability to go small in the playoffs. Didn't, like I said, play a big role or have a big job in Phoenix, but he ended up going down. Now he's back. The Pacers did sign Craig to a 2-year, $10 million deal last season, so his contract not crazy or expensive. Was he really worth a second round pick? I don't know, especially when he only played 12 minutes in the playoffs last year. Was he really worth a second rounder in Jalen Smith when you kind of rather have Jalen Smith because he has potential, to be at least a solid backup center, which you probably could use in the future, especially because he actually a guy that can space the floor a little bit. And like I said, giving up Jalen Smith in the second rounder for Torrey Craig, who really is just a role player that really ain't going to play that much like he did last season, which he didn't play much. So it's kind of like that's a lot for Torrey Craig to me, since he's not that good, and I don't really see him being that good on his team for those two players. But I guess Jalen Smith didn't play that much, so I guess it don't hurt that much. But other than that, I think the Pacers probably win this trade. But Jalen Smith would be good for the Pacers. Another guy that can possibly be, around for another 2, 3 years. They get to decide what he is and what he can be for the team, how they want to use him, see if he works. If not, you can always waive him. You can give him an extension. They got to figure out what they're going to do with him. Let him play out this season, see what he can do, what he can't do, if they want to keep him or not. At worst, they still got a second rounder guaranteed in this trade. So even if the Jalen Smith thing don't work out, or they don't want to keep him long term, they still got a second round pick, which is about what Torrey Craig, is probably better off to keep a second round pick than Torrey Craig at this point. But that's what they got. Celtics acquired Daniel Tice from the Rockets for Dennis Schroeder and his cancer. So the Boston Celtics will be sending Dennis Schroeder and his cancer to the Rockets for Schroeder and cancer. So this will help. This will help the Celtics get Tice back. So Tice signed a 4-year, $36 million deal with the Rockets this offseason. That deal didn't really benefit them that much because um, one, he didn't really play well or amazing for the Celtics, so they moved on from him because they ended up giving money to Robert Williams, who has been pretty solid. And then you look at the fact that he got a 4-year, $36 million deal. Not crazy when you compare the fact that he's a solid center, probably a backup string 3 center. I don't really, I'd probably rather have Ennis Cantor over him. But, especially under this contract, 4-year, $36 million deal, not terrible. But I feel like Shooter and Cancer, ain't the worst thing. But like Daniel Tice isn't that great or amazing either. So, we had to see. He played with us before. He can give you some shooting. He can give you, some good minutes at center. But, not really crazy over this one. Like I said, as a Celtic fan, Bruno Fernando, not really a big part of our team. Enes Kanter didn't really have the greatest season for us either. Dennis Schroeder did help us win a lot of games. Probably would be better than Daniel Tice, but now he's gone. And like I said, the Houston Rockets will waive Canner. I don't really see Shooter being a big part of the Rockets either, long term, obviously, because they still got Kevin Porter, who they supposed to be their point guard, but having a backup point guard that can score and do some things and allow them to go small can help. But I don't really see him being, long term with the Rockets, probably going this year. But like I said, not going crazy over the Tice deal either. Like I said, I don't really like Daniel Tice even when he's with the Celtics, and now he's back. So I'm not really crazy over that either. But more or less got to deal with that. Celtics acquired Derek White from the Spurs for Josh Richardson in the first round pick. So the Celtics will be trading Josh Richardson and Romeo Langford in the first round pick to the San Antonio Spurs for Derek White. The pick is protected 1 through 4 in 2022. The Spurs will also receive a pick swap with the Celtics in 2028. So when you look at this trade, Derek White had a lot of potential for the Spurs. They didn't really know what to do with him. They had Lonnie, they had DeJounte, and so many other guards that eventually, like we started to see, the Spurs going to have to move on from some of these guys. Not going to have to pay, not going to be able to pay all of them. Plus, they all kind of do similar stuff, and a lot of them, as we see, is not really great or all stars at this point of their career. Plus, they only want to get older. Plus, you look at the fact that the Spurs are rebuilding and they actually got to put a team together, for this team to actually be something in the future. And now Derek White will be moved on to the Celtics. And, he has a little bit more upside, a little bit more energy than Josh Richardson, who we just gave an extension to at the beginning of the season. Hasn't really been great or amazing for us, but Derek White gives a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more energy, and a little bit more fight than we had with Josh Richardson. And Romeo Langford just never really panned out for the Celtics. We drafted him. He was a guy that had a little bit of upside as a scorer, but we have a lot of guards. Our team is built off Tatum and Brown, and we have a lot of wings other than that too, and guards. So losing Langford ain't that bad, especially because I don't really see him staying with the Spurs long term. And honestly, I'd rather have Derek White than Josh Richardson and Langford anyway. but we also did have to send the first round pick. Like I said, it is protected 1 through 4 in 2022, but the Spurs will also receive a pick swap with the Celtics in 2028. So keep that in mind. White did sign a 4 year, $73 million extension with the Spurs during the 2020 season. White did average 14, 3, and 5 in 30 minutes this season. So, like I said, he could be, something different, something fun for the Celtics, especially because these other two guys that we traded didn't really work out too much. So, it gives us a little different style of play that we can have with Derek White. So I kind of like that for the Celtics more than the Daniel Tice trade, which I honestly rather not have because I didn't really like him for the Celtics anyway. The Wizards have agreed to trade Montrezl Harrell to the Charlotte Hornets for Vernon Carey, Ish Smith, and a second round pick. The Hornets have long sought improvements at center, with Harrell giving them a much proven bench scorer. So he didn't really give them what they needed. Hero is a guy that can come in, finish at the rim, get a lot of rebounds, but they really needed a rim protector. They didn't really need a scorer off the bench. They kind of just needed somebody that can rebound and protect the rim or even give them some spacing, which Hero doesn't give them, but he does give them a center that can score and rebound. Didn't really fix the problem that they have as a team, but he does give them a center nonetheless. Plus, they just gave up Vernon, Carey, and Ish Smith in the second round pick. That's not that much, but you had to make the salary cap work. That's why those two guys are gone. And the second round pick ain't much for Montrezl Harrell, who isn't on a long term contract either. So if it works, it works. If it don't, you just move on from him like a lot of teams been doing, you know, at the end of the day. And the Suns also acquired Aaron Holiday from the Wizards. So the Wizards have agreed to trade Aaron Holiday to the Phoenix Suns. Holiday was in his first season with the Wizards. He averaged 6 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist in 16 minutes. The Suns have Chris Paul, Cameron Payne, Alfred Payton on their depth chart at point guard, but they still got Aaron Holiday anyway. So I don't really know how he's going to play, what he's going to really do for him, but um, they made the trade anyway. Probably a little bit better than Alfred Payton, but it really just depends on what you want in the guard. Marvin Bagley to the Pistons, Dante DiVincenzo to the Kings, and the Bucks get Serge Ibaka. So the Kings will agree to trade Marvin Bagley. Hasn't really fit with the Kings. Didn't really play well with Sacramento. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. They never could really figure out what his role was going to be. Should he be a power forward? Should he be a center? Not really a great shooter or a spacing player from the power forward position. Not a great rim protector or a force in the paint at center. So they never could really figure out what to do with Marvin Bagley to the point where they just gave up on him and they just benched him. Now he actually get a chance to play going to Detroit, which I think is interesting because you look at the fact that they do need bigs in Detroit. So I don't really know if it's going to change Marvin Bagley's career, but it's just another chance for him to get another opportunity. I never was high on Bagley in the draft, so I never looked at him as an all-star superstar. I looked at him like a guy where I wouldn't have drafted him number 2 for sure, but Sacramento did and kind of regretted it. Detroit not really giving up much for Bagley, who at this point, but I don't really think he's going to change Detroit that much. Like I said, Bagley inherently just not a great player in general, but you're not really giving much to get them. If it don't work out, you just let them go. If it do work out, then you can just pretty much sign him into an extension, see where he can, be as a starter or a backup, and you can pretty much figure it out from there. So I'm not high on Bagley even in the draft. Not really surprised that he didn't really work out with the Kings, but maybe Dwayne Casey, Cade, and that team can really figure out some things to do with Bagley. Maybe he's motivated and energetic to get back out on the court and have a new opportunity. We'll see what happens with him for the most part. But like I said, I'm still not high on Bagley and not really crazy over that deal for him to go to Detroit. The Kings will acquire Dante DiVincenzo from the Milwaukee Bucks, who was in the contract extension, got injured, didn't really play much this season, and missed the playoffs because of injury. Came back. They ended up giving money to Grayson. Still do have other people like Connaughton on the team. So they kind of had to figure out what they was going to do with DiVincenzo. And they decided to trade him for Surge, which makes sense. Give them size, give them a little bit of spacing. Plus, they got 2 second-round picks too to get off that DiVincenzo contract, which I think is smart because the Bucks don't really have many picks, and now they have more picks, and they can probably get a DiVincenzo S player in the second round, or get a player, by trading those picks for a player in the future to probably get a veteran whenever they need it, because they now have picks, which they didn't have before the trade. Sacramento will also acquire Josh Jackson and Trey Lyles from the Pistons. So I'm not a big fan of Josh Jackson, like a lot of people ain't. So I don't really know what he's going to be for Sacramento, how long he's going to stick around. Same with Trey Lyles. Both of these players have just been bouncing around the league, trying to find a home. I don't really think that changes much in Sacramento. So I don't think this is a permanent place for them. Just probably finish the season or get waived. If not, they'll probably be on another season. I mean, another team next year. And like I said, you know, the Kings previously did try to acquire DiVincenzo, so now they finally got a chance to get him. But like I said, I'm not really going crazy over the Kings getting him at this point. But he is a solid player, good athlete, solid shooter. Um, we'll see what he do with the Sacramento Kings, and they do have a lot of guards on the Kings too. So we'll see what he becomes. Probably still a solid role player for them. And the Clippers will receive Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood from the Bucks, who really didn't fit or work for them. Didn't really think that'd be crazy addition to the Bucks anyway. But I don't really think that'd be crazy for the Clippers. The Clippers have a lot of guards and wings already, so I don't really think they're going to keep these guys that much longer than the Bucks did. So the Clippers got two guys just to get off the Ibaka contract, and I think those two guys will be going off the Clipper roster, within this year or next year. Honestly, and then, at the end of the day, that's about it. As crazy as that sound, no other real crazy trades happened. The Raptors did acquire Thad Young from the Spurs for Goran Dragic and a 2020 first round pick. I do think this trade is good for the Raptors because Goran Dragic wasn't playing for you anyway. Now you get a solid, versatile wing that can rebound, defend, and finish in the paint for you, give you depth at that small forward, power forward position. And you did have to give up a first round pick, but I definitely, as we all know, the Spurs definitely just did this to get Goran, to get the first round pick. So to me, that's more of the common sense thing. You get rid of a guy that you're not really utilizing to get a first round pick when you are rebuilding and trying to, put pieces together. Getting another pick only helps that. And we already know that Gordon Dragic is probably going to get waived anyway. So he's going to be on a different team by the end of this, month probably. Porzingis did get traded. I got to find that trade real quick. So the Dallas Mavericks agreed to trade Kristaps Porzingis in a second round pick to the Washington Wizards for guard Spencer Dinwiddie and forwards Davis Bertans. The Wizards are also sending center Montrezl Harrell, like I said, and Vernon Carey to Charlotte and Aaron Holiday to Phoenix. So this was a deal that was kind of crazy because you look at the fact that Porzingis was supposed to be that big guy for them. He was an all-star with the Knicks, had the Knicks in the playoff contention when he got drafted by Phil Jackson, and everybody said, man, he looks good. Then he went down with that knee injury, and then he ended up getting traded to Dallas. Everybody said, man, this could be a steal, but they never really meshed as well as you thought because Porzingis did have the ability to pick and pop. He had the ability to shoot threes. He had the ability to be a great fit with Luka. Just never worked out. Never really became that defender or that rim protector that you thought that he would become, like he was kind of with the Knicks. And on top of that, you look at the fact that Luka, won playoff games with him. Then he, kind of never really fit or never really meshed well as a team, together. You look at the fact that him and Luka just never took off. I don't really go crazy over this trade because maybe Kristaps is better than Spencer. I think Spencer never really had a great season this year. You got to give him credit. He tore his ACL. He came back. He played and did whatever he could. But the problem is Spencer is not the greatest three-point shooter, not the greatest scorer either. So he gives them size at the point guard position. A lot of people say, Luka need another ball handling around him. People don't really agree with that either if you watch Dallas because Luka is best with the ball in his hand when he's scoring and making plays and, being able to play with space. Spencer doesn't really do that because he kind of needs the ball to score. Don't really space the floor that well. But the trade is made, and the Bertans do make sense a little bit with this team because he do give you shooting. He do give you 3-point shooting, but he has to stay healthy. And like I said, having him and guys like Reggie, maybe you get 2-3 shooters on the court. Some guys can play the 2, some guys can 3. Bertans can kind of play the 4, and probably give you 3-point shoot. Obviously, I probably rather have Porzingis than Dinwiddie and Bertans, but the trade is made. I mean, they're trying to try something different, trying to go in a different direction. Dinwiddie is under contract. Bertans is under contract, but I don't really think this trade made Dallas significantly better because I'm not a big fan of Bertans, but he do make more sense on this team more than ever. And on top of that, so I'm not really big fan of Dinwiddie because he don't really fit what Luka play style is. We kind of seen the same thing with Dennis Smith Jr. having another guard that can't really shoot or space the floor with Luka, ideally doesn't work as well as it does just having the ball in Luka hand. And he just creates and, scores and passes to everybody because he's the best decision maker on the team. That's why he's the point guard of this team. So they had their best success with Luka, running the offense, and now they're going with Dinwiddie. So I think they went a little backwards. You probably rather have Porzingis than these two players. But and like I said, another problem is both of these two players are under contract, and I don't really think they fit that amazing with Luka either. So kind of stuck with these players if they don't perform well or do well. So realistically, anybody that watch basketball and watch Luka play and watch this team play and watch how they've been playing this year, kind of makes sense why this trade really isn't a good idea. Probably for let's say the Dallas Mavericks. So not too crazy over that deal either, but and it's kind of crazy too because you look at the fact that they brought in a guy like Spencer and him and Bradley Beal played together, and now it's already broke up because next thing you know, Spencer is now he's not even a full season with Bradley. Now he's with Luka. So him and Bradley kind of work, but Luka's just a totally different player than Bradley Beal. So we kind of got to see how this goes, but hopefully Bertans can get on the court, get a little bit more healthy, so we can really see what happens with him. But having another shooter, another guy that can space the floor for Luka makes sense. But have another guy that can take the ball out of the hands of Luka really don't make much sense. I don't really get that, but we really have to see at this point if it works or not. But Spencer, you gotta give him credit. He came back. didn't really have the greatest season, didn't really have that comeback season that made us all go crazy, but it is still good to see him, playing basketball and doing his thing for the most part. But I think that's pretty much about it when it comes to trades. Like I said, trade deadline probably was hugely disappointing this year. I think a lot of teams didn't really get that much better, honestly. We really won't know until we see a lot of these teams on the court. A lot of these deals, whether it was the ones, this whole week or just today, you made them, but, maybe they can turn into something better in the future. Maybe you get the piece now and trade it for another piece that makes sense. That always usually happen in the NBA, but a lot of these trades was made, didn't really, make you go crazy. Really didn't make much sense. Really, might not make sense. So a lot of these teams honestly could get worse than they are right now, just because they made a trade that didn't make the sense or make a good fit for them. So, they made the move. They gotta live with it. They gotta deal with it. Now we just gotta see how the season ends, how it plays off. I mean, how it plays out, and now we just gotta see what happens at the at the playoffs. So, other than that, trade deadline is over. Season, is getting ready to come to a little bit of break because All-Star weekend. Then we get to see, who's going to be the team that gets it together, puts it together, make a run, win the title, and, everything can be reset a little bit. And free agency, teams make moves, teams get the draft, and, teams going to look different all over again. So, like I said, not really crazy right now over trade deadline. A lot of these trades are wait and see. A lot of these teams could blow it up. Some of them did, some of them didn't. Russ did not get traded. A lot of people saying, man, they got to get rid of Russ. They get rid of Russ. But he will be on this team for this year and most likely, honestly, next year. So if you couldn't get rid of him this year, I don't really see that changing much next year either because his contract will be the same and he will be a year older. And his roster, unless it go dramatically different, which they can in free agency, because a lot of these guys are not signed to long-term contracts. Maybe they just rebuild and retool around him, LeBron and AD, and see if they can put better pieces around them than they did this year, and try to ride it out. But then they'd be free from the Russ contract after next year. Maybe, they try to figure something else out or trade him as he's aspiring next year, which will make more sense than this year. That's why they probably couldn't trade him. And, maybe look at a different Lakers team with LeBron and AD on the roster. So, when I see, this trade deadline, it's kind of crazy. Some things did, catch us off guard. Some things, we didn't really know what to think of it. Some teams didn't really make that much progress or, go in the right direction, or we don't really know the direction they're going in right now because we still have to see, what they do within the next 2-3 years with these teams. But, a lot of these trades are made, they're done. Now we just got to see what these teams do, how they fit, how they gel, and what they use, what they're going to become, as you grind out the next couple contracts with these rosters. So, you know, whew, it's just crazy. Another trade deadline done. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of y'all day. Hopefully y'all can make sense of some of this stuff. This is one of them trade deadlines where a lot of this stuff was stupid. A lot of this stuff was idiotic. A lot of this stuff was crazy. A lot of this stuff kind of came out of nowhere. And now it's all done. Now we just got to see how things play out, throughout the next couple years. See what worked, what didn't work, what blew up, what didn't blow up, what helped, take a team to another level, what piece that added another piece that got them to the piece, or, the team that they are now, maybe, trading that piece that they had to get to a piece that they needed could still happen, within the next year or free agency. So, it makes sense now. Other teams, like I said, when trades was made, they get a piece now. Next year, the team in free agency also could be totally different as now they got the piece they wanted. They can build a roster more in free agency and next season to make it make more sense, within the next couple years these guys are playing. And to me, we just have to wait and see, at the end of the day of that. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of y'all day. Other than that, trade deadline is over. The wait is over. Time is over. And let's just really see, what these teams can do and how they finish the season. Quinn Wade, basketball analysis signing out. whew, free agency is done. Let's finish the year, and I'll see y'all hopefully tomorrow. So stay blessed. Um, I'm gone.